What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I'm bringing you an updated Centurion deck profile post Legacy of Destruction. The new set brought Centurion some unbelievably powerful cards, most notably in the synchro you see here. Being able to search any Centurion card gave the deck a much needed boost and also gives you some lives to play around Shifter, which I think overall is a strong boon to the Centurion strategy. And it's a strategy I really enjoy playing. For those who don't know, a few months ago I did take this deck to a regional and was able to pick up this mat and a deck box because we did get top 4, but obviously that was in a different format, so I'm super glad to update it for you guys today. Before we get into it, I do want to let you guys know we're getting really close to 15,000 subscribers, so if you do enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh content you like to see here, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out and what I do here on the channel. And of course, if you're a fan of Centurion, you're going to want to be subscribed to keep up to date with all of the updates to the deck. So with all that being said, let's hop into this updated Centurion deck profile. Starting off, we have our 3 Centurion Primera, the main starter for the deck. One of the many one-card starters Centurion has access to. She, for now, is still the deck's only tuner. Of course, in Infinite Forbidden, we know we get an additional tuner for the Centurion archetype, and I'm super excited for that because having multiple tuners is really solid. Because the only issue Centurion Primera has is the fact that she's the only tuner, which means your opponent knows exactly what they want to interrupt to keep you off of synchro. Primera is essential for the deck because the only way you're accessing your powerful synchro monsters and ways to win the game is the fact that she is the tuner of the deck. So we are going to maximize 3. 3, Trudea. There's not too much to say about the Centurion monsters because they're all just one-card starters. Everyone knows what they do for the most part. Trudea is just Primera's partner in crime, and she's also a mandatory 3-of in the strategy as another one-card starter for the deck. And then a small change here from Legacy Destruction for the engine is the fact that I'm on 1 Emeth now and 1 Gargoyle, sort of split the ratio. I was on 2 Emeth previously. I think 1 and 1 is perfectly fine because you do want to run both of them, but you definitely don't want to see these in multiple copies, so I think this ratio makes a lot of sense. Gargoyle gave the deck some pretty interesting additional lines, and then also being able to add the card back to your hand when you use it for a synchro is pretty good. So yeah, really solid support from Legacy of Destruction. Then we are on 3 stand-up Centurion. Yeah, we're going to maximize this card because it's probably the most important card in the deck. Obviously, like Primera, your opponent knows exactly what they want to stop. One thing for this deck is Ghost Ogre is in the format, and this card is incredibly weak to Ghost Ogre. There are ways to play around it because stand-up Centurion does have its own protection effect, which is very nice. And because of that protection effect, there are very nice ways to sort of bait Ghost Ogre with stand-up and then protect it with a card like Emblema. But yeah, this card is imperative to the deck strategy, and it is sort of like the choke point, so you do want to protect your stand-up as much as possible. And then I am playing 1 Terraforming because, I mean, you just want to see as many of this card as possible because it's a 1.5 card starter. So we're going to maximize our copies of stand-up. Then we are on 3 Emblema Oath. The last 1-card starter of the deck, you want to maximize this for the same reason as all the other cards. I mean, you just want to maximize your consistency. Due to Ghost Ogre coming back in the format, like I previously said, this card got a little bit better because if you activate stand-up, you can then, like, if they chain Ghost Ogre, you can chain Emblema to, like, place Primera from your deck, and then stand-up Centurion won't be destroyed by card effects, which is very cool. That's a play that's definitely worth noting. And then this card is very versatile, being either an extender or if your plays go through, you can set a Centurion spell or trap, which is very strong, so we're definitely maxing 3 Emblema. And then I am on 1 Centurion Bonds and 1 Phalanx. So I wasn't on Bonds in my regional list. However, with the addition of the new synchro, I do like the versatility being to search any specific Centurion spell or trap outside of just Primera. I think it made this card quite a bit better, and also at the regional there were times where I did want the Bonds, even though it can make some of your like bad hands even worse, which I don't like. I'm not playing the new spell from Legacy of Destruction. I think it's called Wake Up Centurion. I've tested around with it a bit and I'm not 100% sold on it. Maybe with more testing I'll add it back in. I do think its like Grave Effect is pretty nice to send either of these cards to the graveyard. For me personally, Phalanx is my favorite because I'm always going for it. I mentioned this in my regional profile, but I just don't expect this deck to ever play. Like, every time I play this deck, I fully expect my opponent to stop Crimson Dragon and Calamities from coming out. So a card like Phalanx is a card I really want to search a lot, which made the new synchro really strong, being able to just add the trap. Because I like ending with this card, because it's follow-up, and it makes sure my opponent maybe can't play even through board breakers. So yeah, overall Phalanx is my favorite, like, Centurion extra spell and trap. That's it for Engine. It's just 17 cards, and then we get to go to the non-Engine, which is what this deck is most known for playing. It's kind of like Tenpai in that regard, where you play like 16 to 17 Engine cards, and then just over half your deck is non-Engine. 3 of those I'm choosing to play Pot of Desires. Some people choose to play Prosperity in this slot, and I think that's perfectly fine. Me, ever since this deck came out, I have been on Desires. It's my preferred spell mostly for going second. I don't like how Prosperity interacts with this deck going second because of Legatia. Not being able to draw means you can't pop, and that's really bad because I think Legatia is one of your better go second options, especially for like clearing the board. Desires gets you 2 cards, and then you're still able to go for Legatia, and that's really strong in my opinion. Also, I've just won games because of the ceiling of Desires, where I've had this card draw like multiple board breakers or go second cards or engine plus board breaker, things that Prosperity simply can't do on its own. And then your deck also just has a lot of discard effects, like Stand Up is a big one, and then another card I'm going to show right after Desires. So you do like having the extra card in your hand, and cards like Gargoyle help with that, and Desires also helps with that. So Desires is my preferred pot card, but feel free to play Prosperity if you enjoy that more. In the card I was just talking about, I am playing 3 Super Polymerization. Personally, I think this card is just insane, this format. Like, it just hits everything. It hits Voiceless, it hits Snake Eye. I mean, honestly, you can tutor Super Poly to hit just about any deck in the game, but for the ones I'm running in my extra deck, the fusions I'm running, Super Poly is most notably for Voiceless, Branded, Snake Eye, you know, all the major threats in the meta. And yeah, it's a good card going first or second, which is really great. It does have the, you know, discard effect, which is where I mentioned Gargoyle coming back being super relevant, and Desires getting you an extra card. So then I'm on 2 Triple Tactics Talent and a Called by the Grave. You know, these cards are also both good going first or second, just really solid board breakers. And yeah, I'm just going to play these because they're just both amazing going first or second for hand traps or even against their engine. And then after running those board breakers and the 3 Desires, we're still left with 14 hand trap slots, which I am running the 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs. No huge surprise there. We're not super afraid of Hida, so we're just going to keep playing the Ash. I mean, I find this card to actually be very strong versus Snake Eye, so I don't really even see... Like, obviously the Hida thing's a downside, but I think it's still worth playing the Ash. 3 Effect Veiler, just another really solid spot negate. We're essentially just running like the 12 best hand traps, which will be the 3 Ash, the 3 Veiler, the 3 Infinite Impermanence. Nothing much to say here. These are very standard if you're running hand traps. We are of course playing the 3 Nibiru the Primal Being as well. Obviously comboing extremely well with both the Veilers and Imperms, and we suffer like no downsides from running this card, so we're going to play that. And then the last 2 hand traps in the deck are 2 Ghost Ogre. As I just said, this card has been coming back in the meta. It's really good against Tenpai, but it's also solid versus Voiceless Voice, which got a huge buff in Legacy of Destruction. It's good against this deck in particular as well if you play a mirror match. It just feels like it hits a lot in the meta, and it's also pretty strong versus Snake Eye depending on where they go. Like if they make Appaloosa with their Selene line, then you're able to Ghost Ogre the Appaloosa, which is helpful. If they don't even end Appaloosa, you can Ghost Ogre the IP Masquerena. If they go for like the Omega lines, you can at least Ogre him to stop a random banish, which is cool. And overall, I just think Ghost Ogre has a lot of application in this format. She's creeping her way back up into like being a meta hand trap, and I think that's really solid. So we are playing the 2 Ghost Ogre, and that wraps up the hand traps and the 40 card main deck. Alright, on to the extra deck, which I think there's a bunch of different things you can do, and maybe I'm not running cards you could run. If you side deck or main deck things like the Bestials, I think your extra deck also changes. But here's what I'm running for this current list that's on Super Poly, and I'm not siding the Bestials currently. Starting off, we have our 1 Centurion Auxilla. This is the new card from Legacy of Destruction, and it essentially just gave Centurion a more consistent going first option because previously you got the Legatia draw and that was fine. But this card is much better at searching exactly what you want. This sort of guarantees I get Phalanx to end my turn, or Bonds if I already have Phalanx and I can set up some follow-up, which is really strong. And then this card also helps you play through D-Shifter better than it did before, or even a Bestial, because it can bring back from Banished as well. Overall, this is huge support for the deck, and I'm pretty happy to play it at 1. I don't think you need more than 1, because if I'm going to play multiple copies of another Centurion Synchro, it's going to be Legatia, because this card is much stronger going second, and on your follow-up turns, it's the one you're going to make after that. So if you're ever going to summon multiple Centurion Synchros, I think it's going to be Legatia. This card is also really strong to bring back off your Phalanx because it just becomes an interruption. And yeah, these are the 3 Centurion Synchros I'm choosing to play. Then we have the Crimson Dragon, which, I mean, everyone knows what this is for. We are going to be making Calamity and the Cosmic Blazer. These are the only 12s I play outside of the Centurion cards, so not playing the red Supernova guy whose name escapes me. But yeah, obviously this is the ceiling of Centurion being Calamity, where you just essentially FTK your opponent. But again, like I said, I'm playing this where I expect this is never being summoned, like ever. I even took out the Fenris I used to be playing because Nib was another way they could stop your combo, and the only way you play into Nibiru in the pure Centurion deck is by running Fenrir. But yeah, even taking out the Fenrir so I play around Nib even better, like you're still gonna get Ogred, Cosmicked, Droplets, something is happening and you're not going to resolve Calamity, is the way I look into, like when I look at the deck, that's what I think. Because if you resolve Calamity and like you didn't get stopped, you just automatically win. So it's about how you win, and the game's Calamity doesn't resolve, and that's why I build the deck and play the deck the way I do. But yeah, obviously you're going for Calamity. And then Cosmic Blazer, also a very strong option, especially if for some reason the game doesn't end or you are able to do this going first. Yeah, Cosmic Blazer comes up sometimes. Or if you get like Kashtira Unicorned, right, and then you can't make Calamity for the rest of the game, you still have Cosmic Blazer. Now for 8s, I'm actually playing 2 level 8s. A new one that came out in Phantom Nightmare that I haven't been able to showcase in this deck yet, that has been receiving some hype recently because some Snake Eye decks are playing it, is the Enigmaster Packbit. This card is actually really cool in this deck because it works with the engine extremely well. Like I've seen mostly Snake Eye players playing this, but and I've seen other Centurion lists play it as well, but this card feels more like it's built for Centurion. It just puts things from the spell and trap card zone, or like as continuous traps, which can be follow-up. It can bring things back from the spell and trap card zone. It can be an interruption. This card's overall a really solid level 8 for the deck, and I felt like this deck lacked a good level 8 synchro, even though it could make them sometimes. And then this card came out, and even though you're not going to go for this super often, the option is there, and I think overall it's a really solid card, so I'm pretty happy this came out in Phantom Nightmare. And then I'm still playing the Zoroa. This is a card I said I would take out in my last regional list, but then Snake Eye became the meta, and I actually kind of like this card versus Snake Eye because you're running the Magistus Artemis as well. This card I feel like you're going to run anyways because it's how you easily turn, like you turn Primera into this and then you can more easily go for SP Little Knight, which is good. And that does come up from time to time, but it just doubles as being Zoro's target to essentially mean your opponent cannot activate Link monsters. It's like a Floodgate versus Link decks, and overall I think that's pretty strong. It's just another level 8 you can make, but if you don't like this card, you can take it out. I think you need to run this. You can also play Almirage, but then you can't do it with Primera, which is unfortunate. But I'm playing this package like this because not only do you want this card anyways, it just like doubles up as being a package for Zora. Then we have the aforementioned SP Little Knight. I think this is pretty obvious. If you have access to this card, you definitely want to play it. If you don't, you can take this card out for like a Zeus potentially, because I'm not running that but wish I could, or like an additional super poly target, essentially whatever else you have to play over the SP. For Xyz monsters, I am playing a Baguska, just in case I get like one turn floodgated by something, maybe a D barrier, and I just need to be able to make Baguska pass, or maybe I can't play through Shifter, but I can somehow make Baguska, which seems unlikely. But yeah, essentially for like one turn floodgates or really bad situations, you can make Baguska and hope plan B works out, so we're on one of that. And then I'm on one Typhon. I really want to play Zeus, but I actually just decided that Typhon was a little better because, I mean, how often am I really going Baguska into Zeus? Very unlikely, only in weird situations where, again, maybe I was debarriered. But Typhon just is so easy to make, especially in like your bad hands and hands you just can't win going second without Typhon, so yeah. Especially against like the branded matchup or something, this card's extremely strong. And then for super poly targets, I'm on the Mud Dragon, which is really obvious, the Garura, which is really obvious, and then the Earth Golem Ignister, which is probably the best super poly target outside of the main two right now. This card is really strong because versus Snake Eye, it just like destroys their whole board. They have like Appaloosa and they bring back IP Masquerena, and then you're just able to take IP in the Appaloosa, make Earth Golem Ignister. Or sometimes they have like Zelantis instead. You can still take Zelantis plus IP. Essentially, any Link monster in IP Masquerena does it, but it also doubles as like a really strong card versus Cyburst decks, funny enough, if you happen to play against Marincess or Salad. That's somewhat relevant. But yeah, these are the 3 super poly targets I decide to play. And that's going to wrap it up for the extra deck and the whole deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below how you're playing Centurion, how you've been enjoying the deck post Legacy of Destruction. Are you excited for the new tuner in Infinite Forbidden? Because I know I am. I'm really excited to play with an additional tuner. Even if she's not like a 3-of, I think she's like a pretty strong card. But yeah, let me know what you guys think of the profile down below. Hope you liked the profile. If you did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. This has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.